Hey everyone, this is Nick with Twisted Wrister Hockey, coming at you with oddball hockey topics, homebrew statistical analyses, jersey unboxings, and more. Hey there, Twisters, and welcome back to my NHL Arena History series. Today I'm going to be talking about the arena history for 4 teams in the Metropolitan Division. I've already covered the history for the other 4 teams in the division, as well as teams in the Central and the Atlantic, so be sure to check all those videos out if you haven't already. And if you enjoy hockey history and are new to the channel, hit that big red subscribe button down below for weekly content, including hockey history, jersey unboxings, oddball topics, and so much more. Alright my friends, so without further ado, let's dive into it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So they began play at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, also known as the Igloo. Before the Penguins arrived in 1967, Pittsburgh gave birth to the Civic Arena in 1961. It was the first arena among the major sports leagues to feature a retractable roof, and in fact, its exterior appearance led to the name the Igloo, and subsequently the naming of the Pittsburgh Penguins franchise. The Penguins weren't the first hockey team to make its home here, though. In the 1961-62 season, the AHL Pittsburgh Hornets moved into the arena to finish out their season. They would win the Calder Cup in their final season in 1967, right when the Penguins came into the NHL. When the Penguins arrived, Mellon Arena, as it was known back then, only fit 8 seats more than the NHL's minimum of 12,500. The first home game was technically the first contest ever between an original 6 team, which was the Montreal Canadiens, and an expansion team. Montreal won 2-1. In 1990, the arena hosted the 41st NHL All-Star Game. Franchise legend Mario Lemieux scored a hat trick on just his first 3 shots of the game. The following 2 years, the Penguins captured their first and second Stanley Cups in franchise history, though both cup-clinching wins happened on the road. A few films were shot inside the arena, including Jean-Claude Van Damme's 1995 Sudden Death, which takes place in a Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 between the Pens and the Blackhawks. The costs of retracting the roof forced all retractions to end by 2001, so it became an indoor-only venue. In 2009, the Penguins flipped the script after falling just short of the Stanley Cup in 2008, defeating the defending champion Red Wings in 7 games. Sidney Crosby became the youngest captain ever to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup. Since 2010, the Pens have played at PPG Paints Arena. The year after its opening, the Pittsburgh Power of the Arena Football League moved in, playing to an average crowd of over 9,000, yes, Dragon Ball Z, and lasting until 2014. In 2013, the arena was a co-host of the NCAA Frozen Four, the first time a Pittsburgh venue hosted a major collegiate championship. The champion that year was none other than the Bulldogs of Yale. Though they continued an unfortunate trend of not closing out the series at home, the Penguins rode the wave of coach Mike Sullivan and rookie goaltender Matt Murray, defeating the San Jose Sharks and the Nashville Predators for Stanley Cups number 4 and 5 in 2016 and 2017, respectively. In doing so, the Pens tied the Oilers for the most Stanley Cups out of the non-original 6 teams. And like its predecessor, the arena was featured in film and TV productions, including one episode of the show Justified, as well as the Stallone-De Niro comedy Grudge Match. Now moving on to the New York Islanders. The Islanders began play in 1972 at Nassau Coliseum. The Coliseum is located about 7 miles east of the borough of Queens in the suburb of Uniondale, and is the second oldest NHL arena after Madison Square Garden. It's located on Mitchell Field, which was once an Army airfield and then an Air Force base. Before the height of the Islanders' success, the New York Nets of the American Basketball Association won 2 championships in the 1970s while playing at Nassau. Headlining those teams was none other than Dr. J, Julius Erving. From 1980 to 83, the New York Islanders won 4 consecutive Stanley Cups. Doing so earned them recognition from the NHL as a dynasty. The only dynasty to come after them was the Edmonton Oilers. Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, and Denny Potvin formed a team so dominant that when playing at home in the Stanley Cup Finals, they were 11-1. Fans referred to their barn as Fort Never Lose. In 1983, the Coliseum hosted the 35th NHL All-Star Game. Wayne Gretzky won the game's MVP, scoring 4 goals in the 3rd period. The Coliseum closed for 2 years in 2015 for a lengthy renovation. During renovation, the capacity for hockey games was reduced to just under 14,000. While this was happening, the Isles moved to the Barclays Center. The formal agreement between the Islanders and the Rangers permits the Islanders to play anywhere on Long Island, including in the boroughs of Queens and Brooklyn. Barclays Center accommodates about 15.8 thousand for hockey, and as many of you know, does not lend itself to the best hockey viewing experience. That's because it was constructed for concerts and basketball first and foremost. Here are some of those shortcomings. The scoreboard hangs above one of the blue lines, and the seating is laid out asymmetrically. From what I read, 416 seats remain unsold due to poor sightlines. I believe this refers to sections 201 through 204 and 228 to 231. Business Insider deemed these, quote, the worst seat in American professional sports, end quote. The piping under the ice surface is comprised of PVC instead of steel, making the ice more difficult to maintain to league standards. Nonetheless, Barclays Center is a premier concert venue. In a 6-month period between 2012 and 2013, it was the highest grossing venue for non-sporting events, including concerts and family shows. The first concert was performed by none other than Jay-Z. In addition to such events, Barclays Center hosted the 2018 Grand Finals for the inaugural season of the Overwatch League. As early as 2021, the Islanders will move into their new home, Belmont Park Arena. In the meantime, they'll continue splitting their time between Nassau and Barclays Center. Now let's talk about the Washington Capitals, who began play at the Capitol Center. Located in nearby Landover, Maryland, the Caps' first arena opened the year before the franchise started up, but lasted only until 1999. It was the first indoor arena to feature video replay on the scoreboard, use computerized turnstiles, and feature luxury boxes. In 1976, the great Muhammad Ali captured the World Heavyweight Championship by lasting 15 rounds against Jimmy Young. A year later, at the age of 35, Ali defended his title against Alfredo Evangelista. The Capitol Center also hosted the Washington Bullets, now the Washington Wizards. In 1978, the Bullets won their only NBA championship, defeating the Seattle Supersonics in 7 games. As for the Caps, they endured one of the worst beginnings for an expansion franchise, but would get the ball rolling in the 1980s with Rod Langway, Scott Stevens, and general manager David Poile. You may know that he's the GM of the Predators now. In 1987, the Caps squared off against the New York Islanders in what is called the Easter Epic. In the longest Game 7 in Stanley Cup playoffs history, Pat LaFontaine fired a slap shot by the Caps' Bob Mason 8:47 into the 4th overtime to give the Islanders a series victory. Now, I've witnessed my own team lose a series in the 4th overtime, and I have to say, it is beyond soul-crushing. Since 1997, the Capitals have played at Capital One Arena, which was formerly known as the MCI Center and then the Verizon Center. The same season it opened its doors to Capitals fans, Petr Bondra, Sergei Gonchar, Olaf Kolzig, and company led the Caps to its first Stanley Cup Finals appearance. Unfortunately, they went up against the Scotty Bowman-led Red Wings and were swept with Steve Yzerman hoisting the Stanley Cup in the nation's capital. Additionally, this arena hosts the Washington Wizards, Georgetown Hoyas for men's college basketball, and Washington Valor of the Arena Football League. In 2005, Iron Mike Tyson fought his final bout here. Just days before his 39th birthday, he lasted 6 rounds but lost by technical knockout against Kevin McBride. Boston University won the 2009 Men's Frozen Four here. And in 2018, Alex Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom finally hoisted the franchise's first Stanley Cup. They won the cup-clinching game in Vegas against the first-year Golden Knights, a Cinderella story to say the least, but soon after brought it back to DC for a parade, a bath in the fountain, and tender cuddling by Ovechkin. And lastly, I'll talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Jackets have been around since 2000 and have played all their home games at Nationwide Arena. Its parking lot was constructed at the former site of a penitentiary, but when you talk about Columbus's fan experience, especially as we saw against the Lightning in the 2019 playoffs, a prison-like environment, that's the last thing that you would think of. The crown jewel to attending a Jackets game is the arena's 1857 Napoleon replica cannon. In 2007, the Jackets arena host and director of game operations got in touch with a cannon vendor and drove all the way to Blues territory 6 hours away to see a demonstration. Now the cannon, I almost think that it should have its own name like Ulysses or Darla. Now it emits a thunderous blast of smoke from its 1,500-pound barrel, sounding off when the team takes the ice, each time they score, and if they win. Captain Nick Foligno summed it up best, quote, "Other teams hate it. My brother Marcus, who plays for Buffalo, and every guy I know in the league, just says, that damn cannon. It's great. It's such a good thing for our home fans, and it represents holding our territory." End quote. Now this is a more somber story, but it's important to mention. In 2002, a 13-year-old girl was struck in her left temple by a puck that had deflected out of play. She passed away 48 hours from a blood clot resulting from a torn artery in her neck. The reason I mention this is because following the tragedy, the NHL mandated nets be installed at both ends of the rink in every NHL arena by the start of the following season. Since then, there have been no fatalities. There's more to this story that I may choose to share in a separate video, but only with good intentions. Here are some memorable events hosted at Nationwide Arena. It hosted the 2007 NHL Draft. The first pick that year was Patrick Kane. It also hosted the 2015 NHL All-Star Game. In 2016, it hosted the Major League Gaming Major Championship for Counter-Strike Global Offensive, a tournament that boasted a $1 million prize pool. The NCAA Women's Final Four was played at Nationwide Arena in 2018. Notre Dame emerged victorious. In 2019, the Jackets won their first ever playoff series in possibly the most David versus Goliath matchup imaginable, going up against the Lightning, who tied an NHL record with 128 points. CBJ stunned the hockey world in perhaps the greatest Stanley Cup playoffs upset ever. They swept the Lightning, outscoring them 19-8 and winning the series on home ice. On an annual basis, Nationwide Arena hosts the annual High School Hockey Championships. It's also one of two venues in Columbus that hosts events during the annual Arnold Classic, a sports and fitness event hosted by none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Alright my friends, so that's going to do it for the Metropolitan Division. Next up is the Pacific Division, so stay tuned and watch the older videos if you haven't already. Did I miss anything? Any other prominent facts or events that you can recall? Let me know in the comments below. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for weekly content. This has been Nick with Twisted Wrister Hockey. Thanks for tuning in everyone, and I'll see you again soon.